conflict in the Middle East. And as such, the Prime Minister and I have welcomed a joint statement on energy security. This statement recognises the importance of supply chain resilience and accelerating the energy transition, including promoting the uptake of renewable energy resources and the electrification of our energy systems. For too long, we have worked with connected supply chains but disconnected approaches. This action is a step to bridge that divide. Today, we can confirm the signing of the administrative arrangement to enable uranium exports to India for peaceful purposes under the 2015 Australia-India Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. The arrangement facilitates Australian uranium exports to India to help increase the share of non-fossil fuel power capacity, providing an additional market for the Australian resources sector. I'm also pleased to announce that Australia will re-award Perdaman Major Project status for its Project Ceres, helping facilitate the development of Australia's largest urea plant in Karratha, Western Australia. Further, we have confirmed their ongoing cooperation on critical minerals, including a refreshed MOU between Geoscience Australia and Geological Survey of India. Finally, I welcome progress to repatriate the remains of an Australian First Nations ancestor held in the Government Museum of Chennai. The ancestor will be voluntarily and unconditionally repatriated by India to their traditional custodians. In the spirit of friendship, Australia will voluntarily return several items of cultural significance to India previously held in the collections of the National Gallery of Australia and the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Prime Minister Modi, I thank you sincerely, you and your delegation, for your warm engagement. While we are separated by an ocean, we are indeed the closest of friends. Today marks the next era in our partnership as we are reminded that we need to continue our ongoing work. I invite you, Prime Minister, to deliver your remarks.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Albanese, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार। मेलबर्न में मेरे और मेरे डेलीगेशन के शानदार स्वागत और आतिथ्य के लिए मैं अपने मित्र प्रधानमंत्री एल्बेनीज का हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। उनके व्यक्तिगत प्रयासों ने, उनके कमिटमेंट ने भारत ऑस्ट्रेलिया संबंधों को नई ऊंचाई और व्यापकता दी है। उनके इस बहुमूल्य योगदान के लिए मैं उनका अभिनंदन करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया दो वाइब्रेंट डेमोक्रेसीज हैं, दो मल्टी कल्चरल सोसाइटीज हैं और दो महत्वपूर्ण ओशन पावर्स हैं। हमारी ये समानताएं और हमारा कॉमन वर्ल्ड व्यू हमें गहरे आपसी विश्वास के साथ निरंतर आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा देते हैं। हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप ने पिछले कुछ वर्षों में अभूतपूर्व प्रगति की है और आज तीसरी एनुअल समिट से हमारे सहयोग में कई नए आयाम जुड़े हैं। 2022 में किए गए इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन एंड ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट से हमारे व्यापार और निवेश का दायरा लगातार बढ़ा है। अब हमने कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन एग्रीमेंट यानी सीका पर तेजी से काम करने का निर्णय लिया है, जो दोनों देशों के लिए बैलेंस, एम्बिशियस और विन विन होगा। हम बायलैटरल इन्वेस्टमेंट ट्रीटी पर भी तेजी से आगे बढ़ेंगे। हमारी रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पार्टनरशिप क्लीन एनर्जी और क्लाइमेट एक्शन में हमारे प्रयासों को साकार रूप दे रही है। इसके तहत हम इन्वेस्टमेंट, टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर और इंडस्ट्री टू इंडस्ट्री कोलैबोरेशन पर विशेष बल दे रहे हैं। पीएम सूर्यघर योजना को सपोर्ट करने के लिए हमने मिलकर गुजरात में रूफटॉप सोलर ट्रेनिंग एकेडमी बनाई है। यह एकेडमी अनेक महिलाओं और युवाओं की कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग में योगदान देगी। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में आज हमने एक महत्वपूर्ण समझौता किया है। इससे ऑस्ट्रेलिया से भारत को यूरेनियम सप्लाई का मार्ग खुलेगा और हमारे क्लीन एनर्जी के उद्देश्यों को नई ताकत मिलेगी। क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स में हमारा सहयोग हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक सिक्योरिटी और क्लीन एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। इसी सोच के साथ आज हमने ऑस्ट्रेलिया इंडिया पार्टनरशिप ऑन साइबर, क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजीज एंड सप्लाई चेन्स यानी एआई पैक्ट की पहल ली है। हम मिलकर क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स कॉरिडोर पर भी काम करेंगे। साथियों, इंडो पैसिफिक केवल दो महासागरों का संगम नहीं है, यह भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया जैसे लाइक माइंडेड डेमोक्रेसीज के शेयर्ड एस्पिरेशंस का भी प्रतीक है। रक्षा और सुरक्षा में सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए आज हमने एक महत्वपूर्ण जॉइंट डिक्लेरेशन जारी की है। भारत ऑस्ट्रेलिया डिफेंस इनोवेशन कॉरिडोर से हम डिफेंस स्टार्टअप्स और इंडस्ट्रीज को जोड़ने पर काम करेंगे। हमारे मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी कोलैबोरेशन रोडमैप से इंडो पैसिफिक में हमारे साझा प्रयासों को नई ताकत मिलेगी। हम शिप बिल्डिंग, शिप रिपेयर और मेंटेनेंस में भी मिलकर आगे बढ़ेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आज हमने कई क्षेत्रीय एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मुद्दों पर भी विस्तार पूर्वक चर्चा की। भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया मानते हैं कि आतंकवाद केवल किसी एक देश के लिए नहीं बल्कि पूरी मानवता के लिए गंभीर चुनौती है। इसलिए आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हमारी लड़ाई भी साझा है, हमारे संकल्प भी अटूट है और हमारा सहयोग भी लगातार मजबूत हो रहा है। हमारा यह भी मानना है कि विश्व के अनेक भागों में चल रहे तनावों और युद्धों का समाधान डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी से ही संभव है। पूरे इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में हम मिलकर पीस, स्टेबिलिटी, फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन और रूल्स बेस्ड ऑर्डर को और मजबूत करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, हमारे संबंधों की सबसे विशिष्ट ताकत हमारे पीपल टू पीपल टाइज है। भारतीय मूल के लोग ऑस्ट्रेलिया के आर्थिक और सामाजिक जीवन में सकारात्मक योगदान दे रहे हैं। ऑस्ट्रेलिया भारतीय छात्रों के लिए पसंदीदा डेस्टिनेशन रहा है। भारत में ऑस्ट्रेलियन यूनिवर्सिटीज के कैंपस खुलने से हमारी नॉलेज पार्टनरशिप में नया अध्याय जुड़ा है। हम दोनों देशों के बीच स्टूडेंट्स, प्रोफेशनल्स और टूरिस्ट के बीच आदान प्रदान बढ़ाने के लिए प्रयास करते रहेंगे। साथियों, आज जब हम दुनिया की स्पोर्टिंग कैपिटल मेलबर्न में है, तो स्पोर्ट्स की बात न करना वैसा ही होगा जैसे क्रिकेट में टॉस के बाद मैच ही शुरू न करना। क्रिकेट भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के रिश्तों की अपनी डिप्लोमेटिक लैंग्वेज है, इसलिए हमारी मीटिंग्स भी क्रिकेट जैसी लगती है। एजेंडा वनडे जैसा फोकस है, डिसीजन T20 जितने तेज है और पार्टनरशिप टेस्ट मैच जितनी लंबी और गहरी। आने वाले वर्षों में दोनों देशों में ओलंपिक्स और कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स जैसे बड़े स्पोर्टिंग इवेंट्स आयोजित किए जाएंगे। इससे हमारा खेल सहयोग तो बढ़ेगा ही, स्पोर्ट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में निवेश की भी अनेक संभावनाएं बनेगी। फ्रेंड, आज की हमारी चर्चा का भाव स्पष्ट रहा है। भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया की पार्टनरशिप केवल वर्तमान की नहीं, भविष्य की पार्टनरशिप भी है। हम हमारे साझा विजन पर मिलकर आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे। प्राइम मिनिस्टर एल्बेनीज़ी, आपकी मित्रता, आपकी प्रतिबद्धता और आज की सार्थक चर्चा के लिए मैं एक बार फिर आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। मुझे और 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों को जल्द से जल्द भारत में एक बार फिर आपका स्वागत करने में खुशी होगी। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prime Minister.
All right, you heard from Prime Minister Narendra Modi there, in fact, inviting his counterpart to India. Also, it's a joint statement that you heard. Details of the Prime Minister has spoken about. We're working at joint sporting ties for the next few years, talking about the language of cricket and also the game, the joy that the game brings in both the countries. Prime Minister Modi has spoken on how this relationship can be taken forward. He's addressed the joint press meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, wherein he said and he expressed his gratitude for the welcome that was awarded. He's spoken about the kind of efforts that the Australian Prime Minister has put in ensuring in improving the relationship between both the countries. In fact, he said his personal efforts and commitment have given new heights and breadth to India-Australian relationship. He said, I commend him for this invaluable contribution. In fact, the Australian Prime Minister also spoke about the 6 years of India and Australia's comprehensive strategic partnership. It has never been more consequential than it is today, said Anthony Albanese. Our partnership has never been stronger. The focus on deepening and diversifying the relationship between our countries so that we can continue to grow from strength to strength. Both leaders in touching upon the landmark agreements which have been arrived at, saying that they expand the relationship across defense and security, education, science and technology. Importantly, an important message from Prime Minister Modi on terror, saying that it touches every region, every country, and has called for peace and dialogue in the ongoing West Asia war. In the context of the tensions in the West Asian region, the Prime Minister has made that significant statement. Going back to what the Australian Prime Minister has said, he spoke about several memorandums of understanding that have been done on various areas of partnership and cooperation. Of course, both the countries have spoken about the signing of the arrangement to enable uranium exports to India, importantly for peaceful purposes, is what was underscored. Listen in.
Today we can confirm the signing of the administrative arrangement to enable uranium exports to India for peaceful purposes under the 2015 Australia-India Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. The arrangement facilitates Australian uranium exports to India to help increase the share of non-fossil fuel power capacity, providing an additional market for the Australian resources sector. I'm also pleased to announce that Australia will re-award permanent major project status for its project Ceres, helping facilitate the development of Australia's largest urea plant in Karratha, Western Australia.
भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया दो वाइब्रेंट डेमोक्रेसीज हैं, दो मल्टीकल्चरल सोसाइटीज हैं और दो महत्वपूर्ण ओशन पावर्स हैं। हमारी ये समानताएं और हमारा कॉमन वर्ल्ड व्यू हमें गहरे आपसी विश्वास के साथ निरंतर आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा देते हैं। हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप ने पिछले कुछ वर्षों में अभूतपूर्व प्रगति की है और आज तीसरी एनुअल समिट से हमारे सहयोग में कई नए आयाम जुड़े हैं। मेलबर्न में मेरे और मेरे डेलीगेशन के शानदार स्वागत और आतिथ्य के लिए मैं अपने मित्र प्रधानमंत्री अल्बेनीज का हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। उनके व्यक्तिगत प्रयासों ने, उनके कमिटमेंट ने भारत ऑस्ट्रेलिया संबंधों को नई ऊंचाई और व्यापकता दी है। उनके इस बहुमूल्य योगदान के लिए मैं उनका अभिनंदन करता हूं। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में आज हमने एक महत्वपूर्ण समझौता किया है। इससे ऑस्ट्रेलिया से भारत को यूरेनियम सप्लाई का मार्ग खुलेगा और हमारे क्लीन एनर्जी के उद्देश्यों को नई ताकत मिलेगी। क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स में हमारा सहयोग हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक सिक्योरिटी और क्लीन एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। इसी सोच के साथ आज हमने ऑस्ट्रेलिया इंडिया पार्टनरशिप ऑन साइबर, क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजीज एंड सप्लाई चेन्स यानी AI पैक्ट की पहल ली है। हम मिलकर क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स कॉरिडोर पर भी काम करेंगे।
All right, the Prime Minister detailing on what was discussed, and of course the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Australian Prime Minister announcing critical mineral pact. But aside that, for a second, I'm going to go straight to Pranay to talk a little about what else was said by Prime Minister Modi. Pranay, he's spoken about the importance for diplomacy and dialogue at a time when the American president has spoken about the end of ceasefire, clearly indicating that diplomacy is for the moment off the table, isn't it, with Prime Minister Modi seeking peace, security and dialogue in this atmosphere of war and uncertainty?
And in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese did make this reference in their joint statement that there are concerns about the geostrategic uncertainty and the threats to regional peace and stability. And both countries and both the leaders said that they encourage all parties to work together regarding the peaceful solution of the disputes and call for the resolution of these disputes without the threat or use of force or coercion in accordance with the international law. And also, in terms of the nuclear cooperation, both countries, you heard Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese making reference about uranium cooperation and civil and nuclear partnership between India and Australia. But both leaders in their joint statement also said that we seek a peaceful world free of nuclear weapons. And to this end, reiterate, India and Australia's commitment for the non-proliferation and global, complete and non-discriminatory and verifiable nuclear disarmament. This is a very significant statement coming from both the leaders in the special context of the regional situation, especially revolving around the West Asia situation, about Iran's nuclear program. Both India and Australia said that they remain committed for the denuclearization of the world, but that process should be complete and non-discriminatory, and it should be verifiable in terms of nuclear disarmament. But besides that, both countries they have aligned their strategic objectives. Both countries, both the leaders have expressed the convergence of their views in terms of the management of the Indo-Pacific region, the kind of infrastructure which needs to be developed for the resilient logistic supplies in the region. And besides that, India and Australia have issued a defense security cooperation agreement wherein both the countries will be sharing the new and emerging technologies. They will be working together to put a curb on the financing of terrorism, ensuring the critical infrastructure and crowded space management in terms of the maritime domain awareness. And also, both countries, both the security agencies and their security apparatus will be working for the to curb or to check the online radicalization. Besides that, both countries will also be working to align their defense co-production and co-development as well. And you heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi making a reference about India-Australia partnership on cyber and critical technologies and supply chain, which is India-Australia Pact. And also in terms of economic cooperation, that India and Australia have recently implemented the ECTA agreement, economic cooperation and trade agreement, and both countries are working together for the comprehensive economic partnership agreement.
Pranay, be with us. We'll continue that conversation on what all has been discussed as far as the agenda of both the countries is concerned. I would say the joint agenda, but what really stands out, viewers, is the Uranium Pact and how that is the key. And we'll tell you the reasons why in this explainer. Well, it's certainly a massive boost to India's energy security. It also ensures the long-term supply of uranium, which is much needed. It is a boost for India's civilian nuke projects, Nuke for Peace. It diversifies India's uranium supply and the sources of supply. It's a big boost for Prime Minister's and the Indian government's current focus on clean energy and our goals. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has now, in fact, has given out their joint statement with the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. This is, of course, a part of his three-nation tour. Well, from a grand ceremonial welcome by the Australian Prime Minister to a meeting with the members of the diaspora, the Prime Minister received a grand welcome. Both countries have held delegation-level talks. A few stories that grabbed attention. Take a look. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a ceremonial welcome and a guard of honor in Melbourne as he officially began the Australia leg of his three-nation tour after concluding a successful state visit to Indonesia. The Australian Prime Minister has welcomed Prime Minister Modi at the ceremonial event held at the Government House, Victoria, where the national anthem of India was played and the Australian forces accorded full ceremonial honours. Capturing a moment of warm camaraderie that transcends formal diplomacy, Prime Minister Modi and the Australian Prime Minister shared a historic selfie after participating in the India-Australia CEO Forum, an economic roadmap business reception. The candid moment perfectly encapsulated the spirit of the high-profile economic and strategic engagement between the two nations. Prime Minister Modi and his counterpart Albanese addressed the high-profile India-Australia CEO Forum, an economic roadmap business reception in Melbourne. Addressing the business reception, Prime Minister Modi said the India-Australia partnership has entered a transformative high-tech era. He outlined a visionary roadmap to accelerate bilateral trade towards its monumental $100 billion target by 2030, emphasizing a structural transition to high-value, future-ready commerce. Prime Minister Modi witnessed a number of cultural performances presented to welcome him upon his arrival in Melbourne, including a unique fusion of the Australian traditional instrument and the Indian tabla, a 10-piece symphony orchestra rendition of Ma Tujhe Salam, and a Kathak dance as well. As always, a grand welcome by members of the Indian diaspora in Melbourne after his arrival in Australia. In a post on his social media handle, Prime Minister Modi said the weather in Melbourne may have been cold, but the warm welcome he received from the Indian community was truly unforgettable. Prime Minister Modi was moved by the captivating cultural performances, he said, that were presented to him to welcome him, and he praised them. Prime Minister Modi also met former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison in Melbourne. The Prime Minister, of course, is on a three-nation visit to Indonesia that he's wrapped up. Right now, he's in Australia, and next stop is New Zealand. Former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Australia-India relationship was vital to the security of the Indo-Pacific region. Prime Minister Modi and the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese held delegation-level talks in Melbourne. On bilateral ties, the Prime Minister said India-Australia partnership makes 1 + 1 = 2, to which the Prime Minister quipped, and when 1 and 1 stand side by side, they make 11. The witty remark drew hearty laughter from everyone in the room, underscoring the friendly spirit of India-Australia relations.
Trust between us is something that has happened where both nations, where we play an important role in global forums as well, working together. Our voices, that there's more than 1 + 1 = 2 in this case, because we are reliable partners.
And let's get you more news as far as the weather condition is concerned. We are learning of another landslide which has now hit Uttarakhand's Tehri region. An old unoccupied building was damaged in this landslide. Well, the district disaster management officer Brijesh Bhatt said the affected area was evacuated for safety reasons. An investigation revealed that excavation work, I beg your pardon, was being carried out by an individual for the construction of a hotel that actually caused a section of the hillside to crack, triggering the landslide. This is now being investigated. 2 restaurants are put at risk following a landslide on National Highway 707A at the Kadukhal around 4 p.m. on Wednesday. As a precautionary measure, both restaurants, nearby kiosks, workers' shanties were also evacuated. The building in Tehri that has come crashing down, and the situation remains rather grim in this region, with reportedly landslides being seen in different parts of Uttarakhand. This is the Tehri region. However, thankfully, it's been a narrow escape for 2 hotels that were just there. An old dilapidated building was being, brought down, and there was excavation work that was being carried out. Pictures are of the landslide that has occurred, and this is from the Tehri region. The landslide brought the old building down. Some excavation work was